The first rule on Aerith Prime was simple. Never look an Aelver in the eyes for longer than 3 seconds. The second rule was more specific. Never speak to an Aelver noble unless spoken to first. And the third rule, the one no one ever explained out loud, was that if an Aelver queen looked at you the way Queen Elisara Valine was looking at me now, your life was already over. You just didn't know how yet. I stood perfectly still in the center of the crystalline chamber, hands clasped behind my back, spine straight, breathing shallow. The air itself felt charged, faintly warm despite the high vaulted halls carved from pale gold stone. Light filtered down from the domed ceiling, refracted through hanging crystal prisms, bathing everything in a soft, otherworldly glow, including her. Queen Elisara sat upon the elevated dais, posture immaculate, expression unreadable. Her skin held that faint luminous quality all Aelver possessed, porcelain smooth, almost unreal. Yet hers seemed brighter, as if the light obeyed her rather than merely touching her. Long ivory hair cascaded over her shoulders like silk spun from moonlight. The gold circlet at her brow wasn't just ceremonial, it pulsed faintly, alive with ancient authority. Her eyes were the part no human ever forgot. Aelver eyes weren't just blue, they were too blue, like standing at the edge of a frozen ocean and realizing it was staring back. I forced myself to break eye contact at exactly 3 seconds. State your designation. Her voice was calm, smooth, perfectly controlled, but beneath it I felt something else. Not emotion, Aelver were famous for lacking those, but pressure, like standing too close to a massive engine humming just under the surface. Technician Elias Ward, I said. Terran Systems Division, assigned to recalibrate the auric lattice in the eastern spire. Silence followed. Too long. I could feel every noble in the chamber watching me, tall, elegant figures with elongated ears and flawless features, their expressions uniformly neutral. To them I was an object, a tool, a human import brought in because Terran neural adaptability made us useful around volatile energy fields. Nothing more. Queen Elisara rose from her throne. The movement was subtle, fluid, yet the room shifted with it. The air seemed to draw inward as she descended the steps, each footfall soundless against the crystal floor. I kept my gaze respectfully lowered, heart pounding so hard I was certain they could hear it. She stopped directly in front of me, close enough that I could feel warmth radiating from her skin. That wasn't normal. Aelver body temperature ran cooler than human baseline. Every xenobiology brief made that very clear. And yet standing there I felt a faint, impossible heat, gentle, not dangerous, but unmistakable. Look at me. The command was quiet, absolute. Every instinct screamed not to do it, but refusal wasn't an option. I raised my eyes, and for a fraction of a second something broke, not in me, in her. Queen Elisara's pupils, previously narrow, controlled, expanded almost imperceptibly. A flicker passed across her perfect composure, gone so quickly I might have imagined it. But the warmth intensified, blooming outward like a pulse beneath her skin. Her fingers twitched at her side. Aelver didn't fidget. "You repaired the lattice yesterday," she said slowly. "Yes, your radiance. You altered the resonance parameters." I followed the specifications provided. Another pause, her gaze never left mine now. 3 seconds passed, 4, 5. No one moved, the rules were breaking. "Touch the lattice," she said, my stomach dropped. "Your radiance, with respect, the lattice is active, direct contact." "Will not harm you," she interrupted, "unless you are lying." I swallowed and turned toward the crystalline pillar rising beside the dais. The auric lattice hummed softly, threads of golden energy spiraling within its translucent core. I placed my palm against the surface. The reaction was immediate. The lattice flared, brighter than it ever had before, energy surging in a sudden harmonic bloom that sent a wave of warmth rippling through the chamber. Gasps echoed from the nobles. Behind me I felt it, a sharp intake of breath. I turned just in time to see Queen Elisara stagger, only half a step, but enough to shatter centuries of Aelver discipline. Light erupted beneath her skin, faint at first, then stronger, tracing delicate patterns along her neck and collarbone. Her hand pressed against her chest. "What is this?" she whispered. The chamber erupted into chaos, guards moving, nobles murmuring in alarm, but she lifted one hand and the room froze instantly. Her gaze locked onto me again. Not cold now, focused, intense, almost startled. "You," she said, voice trembling despite her effort to control it. "Come closer." I didn't move. I couldn't. "Elia's ward," she continued, stepping forward, the glow beneath her skin pulsing in time with her breath. "You have triggered something that was not supposed to exist." Her fingers brushed my wrist as she passed. The contact lasted less than a second. It felt like standing in sunlight after a lifetime of cold. Queen Elisara froze mid-step. Her breath caught, and for the first time in Aelver recorded history, the Queen of Aerith Prime looked at a human and whispered, almost in fear, "Remove the chamber. Prepare my private sanctum." She turned back to me, eyes blazing with unfamiliar warmth. "And you," she said softly, dangerously, "will come with me." The guards hesitated. No one dared question her. As the doors sealed behind us, I realized with chilling clarity that I hadn't just broken protocol. I had awakened something ancient, and whatever it was, it had chosen me. The doors of Queen Elisara's private sanctum sealed behind us with a sound that felt far too final. Silence followed, thick, pressurized, the kind that made every breath feel intrusive. The chamber was smaller than the throne hall, but infinitely more dangerous. No guards, no nobles, no witnesses, just soft golden light emanating from the walls themselves, alive with slow-moving sigils that pulsed like a heartbeat. And her. Queen Elisara stood several paces ahead of me, her back turned, shoulders held rigid with effort. The faint luminescence beneath her skin had not faded. If anything, it was growing stronger, no longer an accidental flare, but a sustained glow she seemed to be actively suppressing. "You will remain where you are," she said, voice steady but strained. "Do not approach unless commanded." "Yes, Your Radiance." I obeyed instantly, feet rooted to the crystal floor. My pulse was still racing from the brief contact. My wrist tingled where her fingers had brushed it, warmth lingering in a way that defied every medical expectation I had. She exhaled slowly. "That reaction," she said, more to herself than to me, "it should not have occurred." She turned. Up close, the difference was unmistakable. The Queen of Aerith Prime was no longer a perfectly composed icon of Aelver control. Her pupils were still dilated, the glow beneath her skin tracing faint lines along her cheekbones, down her throat. One hand remained clenched at her side, knuckles pale as if resisting an instinct she did not recognize. "You are Terran," she said. "Your species possesses no documented resonance with Aelver biofields." "I'm aware," I replied carefully. "This isn't supposed to happen." "No," she agreed, "it is not." She began to pace, slow, deliberate steps that nevertheless betrayed tension. Aelver movement was usually effortless, every motion optimized through centuries of genetic refinement. Now there was a fractional hesitation in each turn, as if her body was no longer perfectly aligned with her intent. "You altered the lattice frequency," she said, "unintentionally." "Yes, and yet it aligned with my core signature." That was alarming. "Your radiance if there's a risk." "There is always risk," she interrupted sharply, then paused, visibly reining herself in. Her voice softened. "But this risk is different." She stopped in front of me again, closer this time. Too close. My instincts screamed caution, but something else stirred beneath that fear, an inexplicable sense of recognition, of standing in the presence of something that noticed me in return. "What did you feel," she asked quietly, "when you touched the lattice?" I hesitated. Warmth, connection, like tuning an instrument and realizing it was already in harmony. Her breath hitched, the glow brightened. "That is impossible," she whispered, "and yet." She lifted her hand halfway between us, then froze, fingers trembling slightly. Aelver hands did not tremble. "Elia's ward," she said, her voice now dangerously soft. "Do you understand the significance of what has occurred?" "I understand enough to know I'm in trouble." That earned me the faintest hint of a smile. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, but it was there. "You have activated a dormant response," she said. "One my people eradicated long ago." "Eradicated?" "Emotion," she replied flatly. "Attachment, resonant bonding." My stomach tightened. The words aligned far too neatly with what I was feeling, the pull, the warmth, the sense of gravity drawing me toward her. "We believed such instincts weakened us," she continued. "They interfered with judgment, with governance, with control." "And now?" I asked, her eyes locked onto mine. "And now I cannot silence them." The air between us grew warmer. I became acutely aware of the distance, or lack of it, between our bodies. Every rational thought urged me to step back, to create space, but my feet remained stubbornly still. "Your presence," she said slowly, "amplifies the response." "I can leave," I offered, though the idea felt wrong even as I said it. "No." The word was immediate, absolute. She caught herself again, jaw tightening. "You will remain," she corrected more evenly, "until I understand what you have awakened." She took another step closer. The glow surged. My breath caught as heat radiated from her skin, no longer subtle, no longer deniable. The legends about lethal Aelver cold felt laughably irrelevant now. "Do not touch me," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "If you do, I am uncertain I can control the outcome." I nodded, understood. Her hand lifted anyway. Slowly, deliberately. She stopped inches from my chest, the air shimmered. "Curious," she murmured. "My body anticipates contact." "So does mine," I admitted before I could stop myself. Her eyes widened, then softened. "Then we are both compromised," she said. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then she stepped back abruptly, turning away as if afraid of what another second might bring. "You will remain under my personal authority," she said. "No one will touch you. No one will question you." "What about you?" I asked. She glanced over her shoulder, expression unreadable, glow pulsing like a living thing beneath her skin. "I will determine," she said, "whether this resonance is a threat to my rule." Her gaze sharpened, or the beginning of something Aerith Prime was never meant to remember. The sanctum lights dimmed slightly as the doors behind me unlocked. "Rest," she commanded. "Tomorrow we test boundaries." As I was escorted away, one thought echoed relentlessly in my mind. Whatever I had awakened inside the Aelver Queen, it was awake now, and it was watching me. Sleep was impossible. I lay awake in the guest chamber assigned to me, elegant, quiet, guarded by 2 Aelver sentinels outside the sealed doors, staring at the faintly glowing patterns etched into the ceiling. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it again. That invisible pull, that subtle alignment, like my entire nervous system had been retuned without my consent. And somewhere beyond these walls, Queen Elisara was feeling it too. The realization was equal parts terrifying and intoxicating. At precisely the 3rd bell of the cycle, the door chimed. Not a guard, her. She entered alone. No circlet, no ceremonial robes. Just flowing pale fabric that clung softly to her form, accentuating the elegant strength beneath. Her hair was unbound, falling freely around her shoulders like a living cascade of moonlight. And the glow, it was unmistakable now. No longer a faint anomaly, but a steady warmth beneath her skin, concentrated at her throat, her collarbone, the delicate lines of her face. "You are awake," she said quietly. "I don't think I could sleep if I tried." She studied me for a long moment, head tilted slightly, as if reassessing everything she thought she knew. "Good," she said. "Then we proceed." "With what?" I asked. "With truth." She gestured, and the door sealed behind her. The sigils along the walls flared briefly, then dimmed. "Privacy field," she explained. "Nothing spoken here will be recorded. Nothing felt will be observed." That last word landed differently. She moved closer, not rushing, not hesitating, until we stood barely a step apart. I could feel the warmth radiating from her now, subtle but undeniable, brushing against my skin like the memory of sunlight. "Tell me," she said softly, "what you are feeling right now." The question caught me off guard. No Aelver had ever asked a human that without clinical detachment. This wasn't analysis. This was curiosity. Conflicted, I admitted. Pulled in two directions. Part of me knows this is dangerous. The other part doesn't want it to stop. Her breath shuddered just slightly. "That mirrors my own experience," she said, "which should not be possible." She lifted her hand again. This time she didn't stop. Her fingers hovered a breath away from my forearm, the space between us alive with faint energy. I felt it before she touched me, every nerve standing at attention, every instinct screaming awareness. "Permission," she said quietly. "This time I choose." I nodded, permission granted. Her fingers closed gently around my wrist. The reaction was immediate. Warmth surged through me, not heat, not pain, but connection. Like a circuit snapping closed after centuries of separation. The glow beneath her skin flared brighter, cascading along her arm, spreading across her chest in intricate patterns that pulsed in perfect synchrony with my heartbeat. She gasped. Actually gasped. Her grip tightened, not possessive but anchoring, as if she needed me to remain upright. "This is," her voice faltered. "This is not merely biological." I swallowed hard. "No." But she met my gaze, eyes luminous now, filled with something raw and unfiltered. "I can feel you," she whispered. "Not your thoughts, your presence, your steadiness." Something shifted inside me. I reached up instinctively, stopping myself just short of touching her cheek. "Tell me to stop," I said. She shook her head once. "Do not." Her free hand pressed lightly against her own chest, as if startled by the sensation there. "My heart rate has increased," she said, almost wonderingly. "My emotions, gods, Elias, there are so many." She laughed then, soft, uncertain, beautiful. "I was taught that emotion was chaos," she continued. "That control was clarity. But this feels like alignment." The glow pulsed brighter. I became acutely aware of how close we were, of the fact that this wasn't a fleeting anomaly anymore. This was a pattern forming, a bond. "You need to know something," she said, suddenly serious. "The Council will not tolerate this. I figured. They will attempt to classify you as a contaminant," she continued. "A destabilizing variable. There are already voices demanding your removal. Exile. Worse," she said quietly, "severance." My chest tightened. "From you." "Yes." She released my wrist slowly, as if afraid of the loss of contact. And the glow dimmed just a fraction, enough to make her inhale sharply. "I will not allow that," she said, voice steadying with resolve. "But my authority will be challenged." "And this resonance," I asked, "what does it mean to your people?" Her eyes darkened with ancient memory. "It was once called the Awakening," she said. "Aelver legends speak of it as the moment when two beings recognized not dominance or utility, but choice. That sounds dangerous for a ruling class." "It was," she said, "which is why it was erased." She stepped back then, creating space, but not distance. "You are not my subject," she said firmly. "You are not my possession. Whatever this becomes, it will be chosen by both of us." A pause. "But know this, Elias Ward." Her gaze burned into me. "You have awakened something in me that cannot be put back to sleep." The door chimed, a signal from the outer corridor. Her expression hardened, regal composure snapping back into place like armor sliding on over flame. "The Council summons me," she said. "They sense the disturbance." She moved toward the door, then stopped. Without turning, she said softly, "When next we meet, we will not be alone." The doors opened. She stepped through, and I was left standing in a room still humming with residual warmth, knowing with absolute certainty that whatever was coming next would test not just our bond, but the very foundations of Aelver rule. The council chamber was colder than the throne hall, not in temperature, though the air carried that familiar Aelver chill, but in intent. The space was circular, carved from a single piece of pale crystal stone, its walls etched with ancient glyphs representing law, lineage, and restraint. No ornamentation, no comfort. This was where emotion went to be judged. I stood at the periphery, positioned deliberately where I could be seen but not acknowledged. Queen Elisara stood at the center. She was once again the image of Aelver perfection. Posture flawless, expression serene, the faint glow beneath her skin subdued to the point of invisibility. If I hadn't felt her warmth hours earlier, if I hadn't seen her struggle to breathe when she touched me, I might have believed nothing had changed. The counselors sat elevated around the chamber, 9 of them, each representing one of the ancient houses. Their elongated ears bore intricate metal sigils denoting rank. Their eyes, silver, blue, pale gold, were fixed on Elisara with clinical precision. Queen Elisara Valine, intoned High Counselor Tharian, his voice echoing unnaturally. You summoned this session under emergency protocol. Yes, she replied calmly. You reported an unauthorized bioresonant event, Tharian continued. One involving a human. A ripple passed through the chamber, subtle, controlled, but present. The human technician Elias Ward, Elisara said, naming me aloud for the first time before others, was present when the auric lattice aligned with my core signature. An impossibility, said Counselor Vera sharply. Such resonance was bred out of the royal line centuries ago. And yet, Elisara said, lifting her chin slightly, it occurred. Silence followed. Then Tharian's gaze shifted, finally landing on me. Human, he said, step forward. Every instinct urged me to remain still, but refusal would only confirm suspicion. I stepped into the center ring, acutely aware of the weight of 9 alien minds dissecting me in real time. Do you deny triggering the event? Tharian asked. No, I said, but it was unintentional. Intent is irrelevant, Vera snapped. Impact is not. Elisara's fingers curled once at her side, barely noticeable, but I saw it. This council must determine whether this human represents a contamination risk, Tharian continued, or something more dangerous. Define dangerous, Elisara said coolly. Destabilizing, Vera replied. Your composure has been inconsistent since the event. That did it. The glow flared, not explosively, not dramatically, but undeniably. A warm shimmer traced the line of Elisara's throat before she reined it in. Several counselors leaned forward despite themselves. You are monitoring my physiology without consent, Elisara said evenly. That alone violates 3 covenants. You are the sovereign, Tharian replied. Your physiology is the state. Elisara turned slowly, letting her gaze sweep across them. For 3 centuries, she said, we have equated control with strength, suppression with stability, and yet our society stagnates. Our birth rates decline, our creativity withers. You propose sentiment as governance. Vera scoffed. I propose honesty, Elisara replied. The resonance did not weaken me. She gestured toward me, not as an owner but as a reference point. It clarified me. The chamber erupted in controlled murmurs. Clarification leads to attachment, Tharian warned. Attachment leads to bias. Bias already exists, Elisara countered. We simply pretend otherwise. Tharian raised a hand. This council will decide the matter. He turned to me, human Elias Ward. You will be subject to immediate isolation, pending further review. No, Elisara said. The word cut through the chamber like a blade. Every counselor froze. I did not summon this council to surrender my authority, she continued, voice calm but unyielding. I summoned it to inform you. Her gaze hardened. This human remains under my protection. That is unacceptable, Vera said. You are compromised. Elisara took a single step forward. The glow returned, stronger this time, casting warm reflections across the cold crystal walls. I am awake, she said, and I will not apologize for it. The chamber went deathly silent. Tharian's voice, when it came, was careful. Then you force our hand, your radiance. A pause. We will initiate a trial of continuance. My stomach dropped. Elisara didn't flinch. I expected as much. The trial will determine whether you remain fit to rule, Tharian continued, and whether this, bond can be permitted to exist. And if I fail, Elisara asked. You will be required to sever the resonance, Vera said coldly, permanently. Her eyes flicked to me, and the human will be removed. But Elisara looked at me then, not as a queen, not as a sovereign, but as a being making a choice. The glow pulsed once, steady, resolved. Then, she said quietly, we will see whether your laws can withstand truth. But the council chamber seals disengaged. The trial had been invoked, and for the first time since arriving on Aerith Prime, I understood something with terrifying clarity. This was no longer about me surviving. It was about whether Elisara was willing to burn civilization's illusions. For the right to feel. The trial of continuance began at dawn. Not the symbolic dawn of Aerith Prime. Its twin suns rarely aligned so neatly, but the ceremonial hour designated by ancient law, when judgment was believed to be clearest and emotion weakest. The irony was not lost on me. The arena was not a place of spectacle. It was a place of exposure. A vast oval chamber opened beneath the palace, its floor a smooth mirror of translucent crystal that reflected every movement, every hesitation. No shadows, no corners to retreat into. Tiered galleries surrounded the arena, filled with counselors, nobles, scholars, and observers whose faces were uniformly composed, their curiosity sharpened by anticipation. Queen Elisara stood alone at the center. No crown, no armor, only a simple mantle denoting sovereignty stripped to its essence. I was positioned behind a transparent barrier at the edge of the chamber, visible, unmistakably present, yet physically separated. A calculated cruelty, close enough to be used against her, far enough to deny comfort. High Counselor Tharian's voice echoed through the arena. The trial of continuance exists to determine whether a sovereign remains aligned with the principles upon which Aelver civilization was built. A pause, control, objectivity, detachment. Elisara inclined her head. I am aware. Then we begin. The first test was sensory. The air shifted abruptly, temperature dropping in controlled increments designed to provoke involuntary physiological response. Frost crept across the arena floor, fractal patterns racing toward Elisara's bare feet. She did not move. Her breathing remained steady, her posture unchanged. Sensors embedded in the crystal floor pulsed faintly as they tracked her vitals. A ripple of approval passed through the galleries. The second test followed immediately. Light. The chamber flooded with shifting luminance, rapid, disorienting patterns engineered to overwhelm perception. It was a known tactic once used in wartime interrogations. Even trained Aelver found it taxing. Elisara closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her gaze was clear, still controlled, still perfect. I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. She was passing. The third test was memory. Illusory projections bloomed into existence around her, scenes drawn from her past, diplomatic triumphs, strategic victories, moments of loss she had never been allowed to grieve, faces of those she had outlived, outmaneuvered, outgrown. Her jaw tightened, just barely. The glow beneath her skin flickered, then dimmed. She mastered it. Applause did not occur. Approval among the Aelver was silent. Then Tharian spoke again. The final test, he said, addresses the anomaly itself. The air shifted. I felt it before I saw it. The barrier between us lowered. Bring the human forward. The guards approached me, not roughly but firmly, and guided me onto the arena floor. Every step felt surreal, as if I were walking into the center of a storm that had already chosen its target. Elisara looked at me. For a heartbeat, the mask slipped. Not enough for the others to notice. Enough for me to see the fear. Queen Elisara, Tharian said, this human represents the focal point of the resonance. You will now demonstrate your ability to maintain detachment in his presence. My chest tightened. What does that mean? I asked quietly. Tharian ignored me. You will order his removal, the counselor continued. Immediate exile from Aerith Prime. If your emotional state remains stable, The trial will be considered a success." The words hit like a blade. I felt the pull between us surge instinctively, like a tide responding to lunar gravity. The air around Elisara warmed, subtle but undeniable. Her hands trembled just once. She inhaled slowly. "I am to condemn him," she said. "To exile," Tharian corrected. "Not to execute." Elisara's gaze never left mine. I saw the conflict there, duty warring with something far older, far more human than her people would ever admit. "Your Radiance," I said quietly. "You don't owe me." She raised a hand, not in command, in acknowledgement. For a long moment she said nothing. The arena held its breath. Then the glow surged, not violently, decisively. "No," Elisara said. The word carried clear, resonant, undeniable. Murmurs erupted through the galleries. "You misunderstand the nature of control," she continued, voice steady despite the fire now visible beneath her skin. "Control is not the absence of feeling. It is the choice of action in spite of it." Tharian's expression hardened. "You are failing the trial." "Then so be it," Elisara replied. She turned fully toward me and stepped closer. The warmth between us intensified, no longer something she fought, but something she owned. "For centuries," she said to the council, "we have ruled by denying half of what makes us alive. You asked me to prove I could remain unchanged." Her eyes burned. "I cannot." She took my hand. The glow erupted, radiant, breathtaking, illuminating the arena in hues of gold and blue that had not been seen in generations. "I choose awareness," she said. "I choose connection, and I choose him not as a weakness but as a mirror." The council chamber descended into chaos, but I felt only one thing, her grip steady, certain, unyielding, and I knew, whatever came next, whatever price she would be forced to pay, she had already crossed the point of no return. The arena did not erupt immediately. That was the most frightening part. Aelver did not shout. They did not lose composure. When their world cracked, it did so in silence, cold, precise, surgical. Queen Elisara still held my hand, the warmth between us steady and undeniable. As the counselors conferred in rapid, subvocal exchanges, only their neural implants could follow. High Counselor Tharian was the first to speak. "Queen Elisara Valine," he said, voice stripped of ceremony. "By rejecting the final directive of the trial of continuance, you have formally failed." "I am aware," Elisara replied calmly. "Failure necessitates consequence." The glow beneath her skin pulsed once slow, controlled. "I accept consequence," she said, "but not erasure." Tharian inclined his head slightly. "Then you leave us little choice." The sigils embedded in the arena floor flared to life. I felt it immediately, a pressure in my skull, a low-frequency hum that resonated in my bones. The warmth between Elisara and me reacted instinctively, flaring brighter as if pushing back against an unseen force. "What is this?" I demanded. "A diagnostic field," Tharian replied coolly, "designed to isolate and quantify the resonance." Elisara's fingers tightened around mine. "No," she said. The field intensified. Pain lanced through my temples, not agony but disorientation, like someone trying to pull a thread out of my mind without knowing where it was anchored. Elisara stepped forward, placing herself fully between me and the council. "End it," she commanded. The hum rose. Her glow surged in response, not chaotic, not uncontrolled, but structured. Lines of light traced across her skin in geometric patterns, ancient and deliberate. The arena's crystal floor began to resonate in harmony with her presence, responding as if she were not merely standing upon it, but activating it. Counselor Vera stood abruptly. "That pattern, those frequencies, are pre-suppression signatures," Tharian finished grimly. The realization hit me all at once. They hadn't just erased emotion, they had suppressed power. "You built your civilization on restraint," Elisara said, her voice carrying effortlessly through the chamber. "On fear of what we were capable of feeling and becoming." The diagnostic field wavered. "I am not unstable," she continued. "I am integrated." She released my hand. For the first time since the resonance awakened, the separation hurt, not physically, existentially, but she didn't step away from me. She stepped forward toward them. "I will not be queen," she said, "not under terms that require me to deny my nature." A collective intake of breath rippled through the galleries. "You relinquish sovereignty?" Tharian asked. "Yes." The word was clean, absolute. Gasps followed, this time uncontrolled. "But hear this," Elisara added, eyes blazing with conviction. "I do not relinquish responsibility." The glow around her expanded outward, filling the arena in warm light that clashed beautifully with the cold crystal architecture. "I will serve as bridge sovereign," she declared. "A role older than this council, one you buried because it could not be controlled." Silence. Then slowly, Tharian's expression shifted, from authority to something like recognition. "The bridge," he murmured, "the living conduit. A leader who governs not by suppression," Elisara said, "but by balance, between logic and feeling, between law and choice." Vera shook her head. "That role was abolished." "Forgotten," Elisara corrected, "not invalidated." She turned back toward me. "And he remains." I felt every eye in the arena lock onto me. "The human," Tharian said carefully, "would become symbol." "Yes," Elisara agreed. "And anchor." The implication was terrifying. "And what if your people reject this?" Vera demanded. "Then change will take time," Elisara replied, "but it will come." Tharian studied her for a long moment. Then slowly he raised his hand. "The council will recess," he announced. "This matter exceeds precedent." The sigils dimmed, the pressure lifted. I sagged slightly, catching myself before I fell. Elisara was at my side instantly, steadying me with a hand to my arm. The contact sent a gentler wave of warmth through both of us, no longer explosive but familiar. "They will not stop," I said quietly. "No," she agreed, "but neither will I." As the arena emptied and the council withdrew, we stood alone in the fading light. "I just became very dangerous," she said softly. I met her gaze. "So did I." A small smile curved her lips, real, unguarded. "Good," she said, "we will need that." Because somewhere beyond the palace walls, beyond the ancient laws and buried roles, I could feel it. Aerith Prime was already beginning to change, and the next move would not be quiet. Change did not arrive with explosions or riots. It arrived in whispers. In the days following the trial, Aerith Prime did what it had always done when confronted with uncertainty. It observed. Quietly. Intensely. Across crystalline cities and floating spires, conversations happened behind closed doors. Data streams spiked. Old archives were accessed for the first time in generations. Words long removed from public discourse resurfaced in private channels. Awakening, balance, resonance. Officially, Queen Elisara had stepped aside from the line of succession. The announcement was delivered with impeccable neutrality, framed as a structural reallocation of sovereign responsibility. The council named her bridge sovereign, an advisory role with no direct authority, no throne, no formal command. Unofficially, everyone knew the truth. She was the most dangerous Aelver alive. I felt it the first time we walked together beyond the palace's inner sanctums. The city opened beneath us in layered terraces of light and crystal, its architecture impossibly elegant, its inhabitants impossibly controlled. Aelver moved with their usual grace, eyes forward, expression serene, until they saw her, until they saw us. Heads turned subtly at first, then without pretense. Eyes lingered, not hostile, not reverent, curious. Elisara walked beside me, posture relaxed in a way I had never seen before. No crown, no insignia, just presence. Warmth radiated faintly from her skin, no longer hidden, no longer suppressed. "You feel it," she said quietly without looking at me. "Yes." "They are not afraid," she continued. "Not yet, they are wondering." That, I realized, was far more dangerous to tradition than fear ever could be. The first incident occurred 3 days later. A young Aelver engineer, barely an adult by their standards, collapsed during a routine energy calibration. Medical drones detected a spike in bioluminescent activity beneath his skin, followed by elevated neural-emotional signatures. Resonance with another Aelver, not human, not foreign, internal. The news spread before the council could suppress it. Then another case, then two more. The awakening was not unique to Elisara. It was contagious, not through touch, but through permission, through the realization that suppression was no longer absolute. "They will try to blame you," I said that evening, as we stood on a balcony overlooking the city's inner ring. The sky above Aerith Prime shimmered in slow-moving auroras, reflections of the planet's magnetic storms dancing across the atmosphere. "They already have," Elisara replied calmly. She leaned against the crystalline railing close enough that our shoulders almost touched. Almost. The space between us had become intentional, chosen, not enforced. "The traditionalist houses are mobilizing," she continued. "They argue that the resonance threatens social cohesion. That emotion leads to unpredictability. That unpredictability leads to collapse." "And what do you think?" I asked. She considered the question, golden eyes reflecting the lights of the city. "I think collapse is not always destruction," she said. "Sometimes it is transformation." I studied her profile, the strength beneath her calm, the warmth she no longer tried to hide. "You're changing faster than they can control," I said. "Yes," she agreed, "which is why they will escalate." As if summoned by her words, my neural interface pulsed with an incoming alert. Encrypted, high priority. I frowned, accessing the feed. "It's not from the council," I said slowly. "External channel." Her gaze sharpened. "Source. Unknown, but it's old." The message unfolded across my vision. Fragmented data, historical encryption, signatures that predated modern Aelver governance. At the center of it all was a phrase translated into Terran standard with unsettling clarity. The bridge was never meant to stand alone. Elisara's breath caught. She reached for my hand without hesitation this time, fingers interlacing with mine. The warmth between us flared, not wild, not overwhelming, but steady and grounding. "This is not just about us anymore," she said quietly. "No," I agreed. "It never was." But below us, the city continued to glow, beautiful, controlled, and on the brink of becoming something else entirely. Elisara turned to me, her expression soft but resolute. "Whatever comes next," she said, "they will try to separate us, not because of what we feel, but because of what we represent." I tightened my grip on her hand. "Then we don't let them," I said. A faint smile touched her lips, gentle, real. "No," she replied, "we don't." Above Aerith Prime, the auroras intensified, colors shifting in unfamiliar patterns, as if the planet itself were responding. And for the first time since my accidental arrival on this world, I felt something close to certainty. The future was no longer cold. It was warm, and it was watching us closely. The night Aerith Prime finally changed, nothing exploded. No alarms screamed through the cities. No armies marched. No laws were shattered in a single dramatic decree. Instead, the change arrived quietly, like warmth seeping into ice that had never known it could melt. Elisara and I stood in the upper observatory of the old palace wing, a place unused for generations. The ceiling was transparent crystal, opening directly to the stars. Above us, the auroras shifted in unfamiliar colors, gold threaded with soft violet, patterns no historical record could explain. "The planet is responding," Elisara said softly, "not politically, biologically." But she had stopped glowing constantly now. The resonance no longer surged at every breath. It came when she chose it, when she felt deeply, when she allowed connection rather than fighting it. Control, not suppression. Balance. That realization alone felt like a victory. "You could have ruled," I said quietly. "You know that, if you had crushed this instead of standing in it." She nodded. "Yes, I would have been an excellent queen." There was no bitterness in her voice, only clarity. "But I would have ruled something dead," she continued. "Perfect, efficient, empty." She turned to face me, golden eyes warm, not blazing, not restrained, simply present. I do not regret choosing differently. But neither did I. We had spent the last weeks in a strange, fragile equilibrium. The council had not moved against her openly. The traditionalist houses watched, calculating. The progressives spoke more boldly now, citing new cases of resonance emerging across the population. Not chaos, adaptation. The old fear, that emotion would unravel everything, was slowly being replaced by a more dangerous idea, that it might strengthen them instead. "I never asked you something," Elisara said suddenly. "What?" "Why you stayed." I smiled faintly. "I didn't have a lot waiting for me back home." "That is not what I meant," she said gently. "You could have left. You were given opportunities, protection, compensation." She searched my face, not as a sovereign evaluating loyalty, but as a person asking an honest question. "I stayed," I said, "because you didn't treat me like a variable." She stilled. "You treated me like a choice," I continued, "and after that leaving felt wrong." The resonance stirred, soft, familiar, like a shared breath. Elisara stepped closer, resting her forehead briefly against my shoulder. The contact was simple, human, no spectacle, no politics, just presence. "I am still learning what that means," she murmured, "to choose without command, to want without shame." "You're doing fine," I said, "better than most humans, honestly." She laughed, quiet, genuine, and the sound echoed softly through the observatory. For a moment, it felt like we had carved out a pocket of peace in the middle of a transforming world. But peace, I was learning, was not the absence of motion. It was the calm before direction. The alert came without warning, not from the council, not from any internal Aelver channel. It came through my neural interface, ancient encryption, layered with harmonics I now recognized instinctively. The same signature as before. Elisara felt it the instant I did. She lifted her head, eyes sharpening. "It's not just a message this time," she said. "No," I agreed. "It's a location." Coordinates unfolded across my vision, deep space, far beyond Aerith Prime's influence. A structure long thought mythological, referenced only in fragmented records Counselor Vyerth had dismissed as symbolic. The confluence, a place where resonance did not awaken, it converged. Elisara inhaled slowly. "The bridge was never meant to stand alone," she said, recalling the message. "Which means, there are others," I finished, or were. Silence stretched between us, not fearful, not uncertain, anticipatory. "They will want to stop this," I said. "Whoever sent it, or whoever's afraid of what it represents." "Yes," she replied calmly, "and the council will eventually force a decision. About us, about what we become," she corrected. She turned to me fully now, posture relaxed, eyes steady. "I will not return to ice," she said, "not even to protect myself." I met her gaze. "Then neither will I." But the resonance responded, not flaring, not overwhelming, simply present. A shared alignment, chosen rather than imposed. Below us, Aerith Prime continued its quiet transformation. Lights shifted. Patterns changed. People felt things they had never been allowed to name. Above us, the stars waited. "We don't have to go yet," I said. "Not until you're ready." Elisara smiled, soft, certain. "I am ready," she said. "Not to flee, not to rebel." But she took my hand. "To understand what we truly are capable of." The observatory lights dimmed as the auroras brightened, casting warm reflections across the crystal walls. Behind us lay a civilization learning to feel. Ahead of us lay something older, something unfinished, and for the first time I didn't feel like a technician who had slipped into